Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Pulver and this is my video submission for the DevOps pipeline for the application I created. Just to start, this is based on an application that I had created for the CS school project. The application itself is a Django application and it is currently running in the production environment. This deployment in the production environment was done fully with GitHub Actions. To give you a very brief overview, you can see on the screen, the idea is that the developer will, in the project board, let me open the project board itself, sorry for clicking around, would create a task, or would be assigned a task. The task would then be turned into an issue, and when in that issue, the developer would then create within the issue here on the right side, you can see create a branch for this issue. So you would create a branch with the source of development, check out locally, and push any changes. Now, once the developer is happy with the maturity of that feature enhancement or bug, and this will be sent then merged into the development branch. Once it is merged into the development branch, a couple of automations will take place. First of all, the Docker container will be built. So I've done a little bit work beforehand. So this was a complete normal Django application. And what I've done with it is I've Dockerized the application itself. So essentially, the Docker image will spin up 3 containers, one for Nginx proxy, one for the Postgres database, and one for the Django application with Unicorn, essentially creating already a package that is deployable in production and has all the good things like security, all the network configuration, essentially making it a consistent experience when deploying to any production environment. Going back to the overview, so essentially what one of the workflows is going to do is it builds the container, performs a couple of Django unit tests, and checks if the container building is fine. And then we'll have another workflow that goes through the Python code itself and provide an overview if everything is fine or not, and as well provides an artifact of a report that can be used for downloading and inspect. Let me show you one of the latest one that just downloaded. It shows everything is fine, no issues identified. But for example, my first one was showing me issues. For example, possible hard-coded password in one of my test files, which is okay. It's a very valid feedback, so I've appropriately adjusted this. Now, once it passes to once the reviewers are happy with the current setup and the code quality in development branch, reviewers can manually merge the code with a pull request into staging. And when it goes to the staging part, it will do the same checks as before, just to make sure that everything is still fine. Security, the Django unit test, the Docker container build, Postgres, and at the same time, there is now a new workflow in place, which essentially what it does is every first day of the month, it will merge the code automatically into main, where then the process of release and deployment will start. So once it goes into main, it still does all the security checks and the code checks it done earlier, but it will also do a couple of additional things. First of all, it creates a release package in GitHub. Let me show you. Let's take, where is it? No, this is the old one. Let's look at this one. So here on the right side, it creates already a release build. So it packages everything neatly into source code, into zip files, and then you can, it will automatically build this and publish for us. So we don't have to do it manually. At the same time, I can show you directly here in GitHub Actions on the deployment, release and deployment. There is a workflow that will, as soon as code is submitted into the main branch, which is protected against any commits, so only pull requests from the from the staging is allowed, it will start to deploy into the production environment. Once it is deployed, it will check the deployment. Essentially, it will do a HTTP request to see if it gets the appropriate HTTP response code. And once that is done, it will do the actual release itself, and it sends an email to the user. So for this case, this is how the email looks like. I can modify this, enhance it a little bit, but at least I get either an email from GitHub saying that any part of the build has failed or deployment, or I get an email saying deployment complete. Now to see this in action, let me go here back to the actual project. This is the old one. So we go here to DevOps pipeline. So I've just pushed something into a couple of seconds ago, 7 minutes in this case, into staging. So what I will do is, let me go here. Now, what I pushed into staging is the monthly merge at this very moment only has a cron job, essentially a schedule. Now, in order for triggering this manually, I've actually pushed a code workflow call or workflow dispatch. So once I start to put that in the future, you can also just click on a button if you want an early release. But for this demo purposes, let's do something that's not really the practice the best practices, but let's do it, compare and pull. Now let's make sure it's in the right place. So I will do from staging to main, obviously assign it to myself. I will put enhancement because there's a code change I've done. The project board I will include as well. Now I will go ahead, click on it. Now for these purposes, I will not have anyone to review. So let's go to checks passed. No, let's create merge and pull. So this is done. Now this code has been pushed into the main branch. This is the release branch. So let me show you here in actions what is being done. So first of all the tests are still being done. So the Django, Postgres, and the Docker build is then being done. The Python security checks is also being done here. At the same time, we have the release and deployment workflow. So we can actually see this in action. So deployment, it actually in 24 seconds, it went through. Now it is checking the deployment with the HTTP request to see, yeah, it passed. And now that this has passed, it will send an email and will create a release. So it has created a release. We'll see it in action in a couple of seconds and hopefully, and the notification email. And you can see here on top of my screen, I got the email saying deployment complete. Now let's go back to the DevOps pipeline, release build just now. So what it did, let's go back to the application, reload. Yeah, it is working. So essentially, the application has been successfully deployed. I've received my email confirming the same. All the checks have passed. Sorry for jumping around. Let's go back to actions. The Django test with Postgres and Docker build, that's quite big. There's a few unit tests that go through that are a bit complex. So this, as you can see, it just went well. So essentially, I've demonstrated the workflow, and feel free to have a look at the project is on the documentation as well. Just as a final touch, for the README shows you the last tests, if they've passed or not, how many commits are ready for release, when was the, okay, this needs to update. probably, yeah, this will take a little bit to update, but essentially will then tell latest release was today. And as well for inspection, now it is currently deployed to one of my production servers. So obviously what you can see on the screen is multiple applications together, but essentially through the CDN of Cloudflare, I have the ability to monitor the health of the website and all the traffic. Now I'm not going to go in much detail here because I might expose other things, but essentially the monitoring aspect is also involved. I hope you liked the demonstration and thank you for the opportunity.